It is 2:43. Welcome back to Central Valley Talk Live. Austin Reed coming to you from our Tower District studios inside the Mike Briggs building. We thank you for joining us. Hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Austin Reed on Air. Let's introduce our final guest today. Joining us is Igal. Treibatch? Igal. Oh, man.
That's okay.
I knew I was going to mess that up. My bad. Present and future water concerns, water preservation, your water savings account. That's some of the things we're going to be talking about today.
Correct.
So thanks for joining us. Where do you want to begin?
Let's talk first of all about population in California.
Where are we now?
Okay, so I got a few notes in front of me over here, so if you'll bear with me. First of all, I represent a lot of people in southeastern Madera, in general in Madera itself.
Okay.
I also represent a nonprofit, Southeast Madera County United, which is really is trying to help the community deal with the problems that we're facing. And these days, it's water, where you see homeowners having to use a watering hose to connect to their neighbor in order for them to have any kind of water. There's a lot of loss of wells, water degradation, and so on. But I want to talk about, in general, some of the things that we're missing and some of the things that we really should be thinking about and concentrating on. So in the year 1900, population in California was about 1.5 million people. 1900, 1.5 million people.
Okay.
By 1950, we doubled to 3 million people. 1930, 5.7 million people. 1950, 10.7 million. So we doubled, and doubled. 1970, 20 million people. Today, 2020, we're at 40 million people.
Yeah.
How long will it be before we're 80 million people? Now, think about the water. How much water do we have in 1900? If we increase the amount of water based on the increase of population, no. Which means that the next time we double our population, we're still going to have the same amount of water that we had in 1900. So I'm assuming that most responsible people will have a savings account. Especially if you have a business, you have to be able to monitor your cash flow in, out, and by having a savings account, you can do that. If you don't have a savings account, you're left, just one-handed. Okay, you can only operate, partially. Well, we need to think about the same way when we're thinking about water. We need to make sure that we have a savings account for our water. Where would you have a savings account for water? Underground storage in our aquifers, behind dams where we can actually collect snowfall and snow melt and dole it out as we need it. And the other is providing with additional water through either desalination or water treatment in our cities. So these are some of the things that we should be thinking about when we're talking about savings account. So let me go back and just talk for a minute about some of the dysfunctional operations in the state when it comes to water. There's an official state water allocation which varies, but in general, 50% of the water that we have is allocated to environmental issues. 40% is allocated to farming and agriculture. Now remember, the state is really big. The economy, in the state is being carried in a large portion through agriculture. And 10% is really more for urban use. So yes, we know that housing takes a lot less, water than. So a family ordinarily will use about 1/3 to 1/2 acre foot per year. 1 acre foot. What is 1 acre foot? 1 acre foot. Well, 1 acre is 43,530 cubic feet. Okay? And when you're talking about that, about 1/3 of it is being used by one family per year. Now, in basics, okay, right now, we're talking also about whether the state official allocation or not. The state tend to also change the allocation from time to time. Well, this year, the environmental allocation was, although it was 50%, it turned out to be more like 80%. Where does that water going? Most of that water is actually flowing out to the ocean in the north part of California. And although the official allocation for farming is 40%, this year the allocation was less than 10%. How are you going to farm if you don't have enough water? Okay, we can. We have enough water in the state for everybody to enjoy if we use storage and other modes in order to operate. So what it means that we need to increase the storage. And I'll give you an example. Millerton Lake. Millerton Lake is an artificial lake on the San Joaquin River. And basically a dam called Frying Dam was built over there. And that lake capacity is approximately 520,000 acre feet. What is an acre foot? An acre foot is 1 acre by 12 inches of water. So imagine yourself a column of 520 feet, as far as what it is, okay? And it's 520,000, okay? Excuse me, it's not 520 feet, it's 520,000 feet. So one of the plans that's being talked about is increasing the capacity, the holding capacity of that lake, and that's Temperance Flat. Temperance Flat is an addition to the existing dam that would increase the capacity of the dam to 1 million by 1,200,000 acre feet to a total of 1,720,000 acre feet. That is a lot of water. Now, where are they going to get that water? Well, that water usually flows by us, and most of it ends up in the ocean. Okay? Now, if we were to create that savings account, we would be able to utilize that water in a rational way. We would ration it out during the summer, and the impact of the drought that we're having is going to be lessened by quite a bit. I think that because of the environmentalists' dissatisfaction with how desalination would be handled is really troubling kind of thing. And I'll give you an example. In Israel right now, Israel is a parched country from the beginning. They now have been able to achieve usage of desalination water to reach all of their water needs for domestic water use without having to use rain, surface water, or groundwater. All of their domestic needs can be met by desalination. They then take all of the tertiary water, treat it, and use that for agriculture. So I think that these are the kind of things that we need to think about. There should be less discourse about using desalination. There's no question about the fact that there's positive and negative to every action. But we also need to think about what is going to happen when we're going to end up to be 1 million people in California with the same amount of water. What are you going to do? Are you going to issue a pink slip to your family and send them to Texas? Well, that's what's beginning to happen now. Not just because of water, but other things, okay? But for me, the total need for thinking about how to divide the water in California has changed. And I think that environmentalism has got a right, but we also, as people, have a right. We have a right to exist, and we have a right to continue and exist. Just because you have it doesn't mean that other people shouldn't have it as well. If you've got any questions for me, you should ask it now. I think the other things I can talk about, I can sit here for a week talking about water.
Yeah.
You know, I started, my concern about water started 15, 20 years ago, whereby I went to Israel and brought out here the managers of their Israeli National Water Company to show them the difficulties that we were facing in the early 2000s, knowing where we're heading, because I personally was born in Israel, and I'm familiar with what's going on over there and how things developed. And I was hoping that we were going to be able to bring in some of the technology, like drip irrigation and others, so we can benefit from it. And then I took also back to Israel some missions with 10, 15 people of politicians, business people, and scientists to show them the benefits. We're only seeing a trickle of some of that beginning to come into California. I'm assuming more of it is going to come through, and I'm hopeful that there's going to be less opposition to desalination and water treatment. Questions from you?
Yeah, we've got about 2 minutes left, but I wanted to ask you, any of our farmers that are watching today here in the Central Valley, what suggestions would you have for them in relation to water?
Well, the state has really come down hard on how we're using the water, especially because of the drought. So right now we are being restricted to how much water we can use based on the availability of the aquifer to regenerate itself. So right now in southeast Madeira, it has been decided that farmers that use 2.5 to 3.5 feet a year to water their crop can only use 1/2 acre-foot per acre per year in order to farm. And unless you have water that you're able to buy, surface water that you're able to buy, you're not going to be able to draw more water than 1/2 acre-foot per year per acre. There are other arrangements, that the county is trying to help with in order to get water for the farmers, but they also are taking some of the water rights from other owners of land that are not using the water for farming as the farmers do. And that's a big conflict. I think we need to find some kind of a common denominator that is going to actually help everybody equally. So for those people who have the right to their water and are not using it, but actually the county that has given that water to other users, that they would be compensated for the water that theirs rightfully and is being used by others. But it's an argument that is ongoing right now, and hopefully that an equitable solution can be found. But think about your savings account. Think about the fact how much we need to build dams. And just remember the following. If we decide today to have to plan for a dam, it will take us between 20 and 25 years by the time that dam becomes operable. So if we decide today that we are going to build a dam, we won't see the positive results for 20 or 25 years.
How can people learn more about your nonprofit?
Well, the nonprofit is operating in Southeast Madeira for the benefit of our neighbors and homeowners. If I can take a couple more minutes, and I know I'm maybe stretching my time, but there's a project that we're very interested in, and the project is drilling recharge wells with a grant that we are trying to obtain through this nonprofit. There is an entity that was put together by Madera County, the RWMG, forced into it by the state in order for all of the entities in Madera County to collectively work on water issues. There is a project that we're trying to move forward to drill approximately 200 recharge wells throughout the county in order to be able to bring water into the aquifer in order to try to diminish the overuse of that aquifer. Where is that water going to come from? Okay, so we have a dam that's capacity of 520,000 acre feet. But when the snow melts, there is overcapacity for that, and the Bureau, the Federal Bureau, has to release that water. And when they release that water comes in large amounts, goes by us very quickly, and goes out to the ocean. If we can capture some of that water that's released and drive it quickly into the ground through these 200 recharge wells that I'm talking about, we can actually recoup a lot of water to the amount of somewhere between 150,000 to 200,000 acre feet over a 10-year period. And that's a project which we're very interested in, and we're trying to promote that because the government is going to be, we're asking the government to give us a grant of about $750,000 in which we would come up with an additional $250,000 in order to be able to dig those 200 wells. But the amount of money that eventually is going to cost us to recharge each acre foot is approximately $2 per acre foot. And that's an amount that is really minimal, but the results would be very effective. And that's the last thought I'd like to leave you with.
People can connect with you, Igal.
Igal.
Igal, sorry.
It's okay. It's
Next time you come.
It's Igal, Igor, or 1 gallon.
Right.
If you write it out and
go.
you read it, it is 1 gallon.
Right. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Your email, though, is here, just your first name at earthlink.net, right?
Correct.
Perfect. Thank you for coming on. Good to meet you.
My pleasure.
Fascinating insight.
Likewise.
So,
thank you.
I'm Austin Reed. That's going to do it for Central Valley Talk. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back tomorrow for another live edition of Fresno and the Central Valley's #1 streaming show. Take care.